Okay, got a nice new setup here for doing my molds. I got some chicken wire. I actually saw this on Reddit, an idea for this. So I take some chicken wire and then I just basically do the same thing as my perforated steel flask here. Obviously it's not going to be as strong, but it'll be a nice strengthener for the plaster sand mixture, almost like a rebar. And it'll also work for vacuum casting, which would be awesome. At least I think it would in theory. I'll have to tape everything still, but I got some extra tape here. And I'm gonna try to do a couple of these Godzillas. Trying to do the boxers for the third time now, which hopefully you guys will see the video for that before this, because if you don't and these come out at the same time, then that means that it probably failed again. As you can see here, I have all of my copper ingots. And up here you can see all of my aluminum ingots. So now what that means is now I can make some really nice clean aluminum bronze, rather than before. What I would do is I would have to melt down all of my copper scrap with the slag and stuff, and then throw in aluminum scrap, and then I would just have to consistently like slag it off and get all the dross and stuff. But okay, got them all sprued up here. As you can see, it's quite a mess, but I'll explain that. I did make one little mistake, was I moved this guy a little bit over the piece of wood, so I'm gonna have to like glue a second piece to it. That way when I pour the investment in, it won't go over, obviously. So I tried to vent out everything that I could, and as you can tell, there's a lot of things to vent. Now I had him oriented in this position almost because I had to, because all of these spikes, so when the metal pours in this way, it'll fill in all those spikes and there won't be any trapped air, hopefully. And then everything on the bottom side will trap the air. And so I had to make sure to vent everything that like pointed downwards. So like the chin here, the hardest part is going to be all of those little fingertips. That's going to be kind of a mess. So I'm probably going to have to like recut those out. Like the feet. Got these all taped up, so now we're ready to pour in the investment. It's kind of hard to tell, but it's like clear tape. It was kind of hard for me to see too. Okay, so for this investment, again, we're gonna be doing 4 pounds of water, 5 pounds sand, 5 pounds plaster. I got a new scale. Lead number 1. Oh, pretty humid here. Now, something else I've been wanting to try too is reusing the plaster sand stuff that I get after I take the casting out. Because it seems like if I pulverize it and just mix it with water again, then it might work. So I want to try that out. I think next time I'm gonna maybe just do 1 trial pattern, or maybe even 2, just to see if it turns out good. And if it does, then we have, you know, a very cost-effective way of making molds. Okay, we're up bright and early to get these into the kiln, which I got preheating right now. Now we just got to take off the bases, get the tape off of it, and throw them in there all day. There we go. There's one. to. Now we need to lightly torch all 4 of these to kind of open them up a bit to prevent the plastic from expanding too much and cracking the inside. About 210, but it's also not fully preheated, so this will probably get up to about like 350 degrees. I'll check the temperature on the kiln maybe in like an hour or so just to make sure that it's right around like 300-ish. And if it's any less than that, if it's still hovering around like 210, which I don't think it will be, I think it'll still be around like 300, 350. I'll leave it there for about, I don't know, 3 hours, and then I'll crank it up to probably like a low and a medium, so much higher than I would normally go next, which would be just low and low. Because again, my kiln doesn't have temperature settings. It's only got just regular like low, medium, high settings for 2 knobs. And then I think the final one will be medium and high. And I've never ran high on this before, so I'm hoping maybe that extra temperature will help me burn out any extra plastic or wax, anything that's left in there. Okay, so I think running both settings on high is bad because I was looking in there and it looks like some of them are starting to crack on the top and it's getting a little sketchy. So I turned the one down to medium and now I have a high and medium, and I checked it with the thermometer and it was like 1600 was around the highest that I saw, and that's, I think, maybe a little bit too high. So I turned the one down and this is what it's looking like. So you can see it's pretty toasty in there. I mean, I can't even like this is as far as I can go over with my hand before it starts to burn. So, just like I suspected, none of them turned out. So that's a bummer. But we did learn a lot. So I'm going to go through these with you guys so you can see just where to learn from my mistakes. Okay, so I had to put a separate bucket here because this is 5% aluminum bronze, since I had to make it differently. We could always melt this down and add another aluminum ingot if we really wanted to, but I think the color is kind of cool. Like if you look at the difference, this is obviously a bit lighter, more goldish in color, and this is a little bit darker, more like an actual bronze, and I think I like the color better. I mean, like look at the color on that. That's really sharp. But you can see here there's all sorts of defects. So this is probably the one that turned out the best, and it's still loaded with defects. Like the tail, for some reason, is hollow. This might have been a blowout one. I probably should have tried to keep a little bit better track of which one was a blowout. But the face didn't turn out all the way, which was kind of surprising. And especially surprising that a lot of the fins didn't even, or the, whatever you want to call them, the spikes, scales, a lot of those didn't even turn out. And I specifically had it oriented so that they would. I got a lot of details in like the actual skin and the scales on the skin. But you can see like the arms didn't turn out. But I mean, like all the sprues are intact. So you can even see like the vent one right here went all the way through and actually vented out properly, and that one. And then lastly, like look at the color, it just looks so awesome. Such a shame that these didn't turn out. But you can see the tail didn't form again underneath the body, like it's all hollowed out. The spikes on this one turned out better, and we actually got like some of the hand and like some of the feet detail. Oh, never mind. Foot's hollow too. But this one had like none of the vents turn out, and I think that's because this one started to form really well, but then it had a blowout. You can kind of tell like right here, literally looks like a blowout. And it just like collapsed, and then everything shrunk in. I even got the face and everything, like that turned out great. The end of the tail turned out. But then it's like the whole thing's freaking hollow, and I think that's because the blowout just sucked all the metal out from those areas. And you can see right here, that's why the tail is still intact, because it filled and some of it started sucking down into the blowout, but then there wasn't enough because it kind of solidified and it stopped it from reaching the tail. So we didn't really get some good results from the first set of these Godzillas. Here's my hand for scale. So you can see it's pretty thick. Now, obviously, I would not want to use aluminum bronze with this because it would just shrink massively and look terrible. Yeah, you have to have good surface texture on something like Godzilla because all the scales and the spikes, you know, he's got to look like a reptile or like a dinosaur or whatever you want to classify him as. I think in the movie he evolved from like a T-Rex. So I think he's actually more dinosaur. Okay, here are all four of the Godzillas, all sprued up and taped up. And now we're getting ready to pour in the plaster sand mixture. So these are the three smaller ones, and then here's the big guy. I also added some saran wrap around all of them just to make sure that I'm not going to get any leaks, because the way I've been taping them up is pretty common. Okay, so it just got done raining for a good 2 hours, so I'm hoping everything will be okay with me melting out here. So here's our brass. So we're gonna stick this crucible full of miscellaneous brass parts, like some plumbing fittings, it's like a brass bolt, some sprue cutoffs, some flashing, and you know, whatever else. We'll have to add some more too as this is melting, but this should be, I think, a better pour.